All right. Jason. Sorry? Yeah, she's. There's this GPS maps app called Waze, and you can tailor the different types of voices, and one of them is boy bands. Have you ever tried it? It's cool. Yeah. All right, let's start with the Heart Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem, Dasida here at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on Master Vajra's mountain in Rajgura, together with a great community of monks and a great community of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in concentration on categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that in the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, should learn points like this correctly and repeatedly, beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than forms, form is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, composition, factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness without characteristics, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no composition of factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element and so on, up to including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on dwelling perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration, without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment and reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequal, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you indicated, even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety along with the worlds of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. We'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. I'll go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest assembly. From the accumulations that I collect by listening to the teachings, may I attain the state of a Buddha to be able to benefit all sentient beings. Yeah, I was going a little bit fast with the Heart Sutra. Yeah, please. Oops. So we've been looking at a text that is called Shantideva's Guide to Bodhisattva Way of Life, and we're drawing close to the end of this text, so we're now looking at the dedication chapter. So, yeah, it was rather a quick recitation. Sorry, hope that I did not exceeded the speed limit. Might get a fine. So we had a nice session this morning with Geshe. It's always like these really nice stories. It's all right. No, it's all right. All right, so we're looking at dedicating for the welfare of human beings in general. Yesterday, we've covered the first point, dedicating so that they may obtain excellence. And within that, we had a dedication so that they may find freedoms and leisures, or freedoms and opportunities, so that they may be able to make the most out of their life. Of course, we want to wish all living beings to attain that state in which they have freedoms and richnesses. But here, this section comes out of the heading of dedicating for the welfare of humans, because a precious human body with freedoms and richnesses is found for human beings. So we dedicated that. We looked at that yesterday. Today, then, we looked at dedicating so that they may enter the correct path, and dedicating so that they have the temporary endowments and pleasures. So I think that, first of all, to look at that in general, we wish for them to have a precious human rebirth with freedoms and richnesses, so that on that basis, they may be able to enter the correct path. Now, the third point says dedicating so that they have the temporary endowments and pleasures. So it seems to be a little bit repetitive, because we've already wished them to have those temporary states of freedoms and richnesses. But it seems that when we look at the content of this point, then compare it with the previous one, dedicating so that they may obtain excellences, it seems that here, under these verses, we wish them to have the internal conditions, freedoms and richnesses, so that on that basis, they will encounter the Dhamma and they have favorable internal conditions, mainly internal conditions, to practice the Dhamma. So just in terms of the verse that we've covered, starting from verse 27. May beings be liberated from the non-leisures and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and mercy or compassion through food and conduct becoming perfect. May they always recollect their life. So not only wish them to have freedoms and richnesses, but also, yesterday we spoke about food that is conducive. So conducive to the practice, for the behavior to become perfect. May they always recollect their lives. And as Geshe spoke about it yesterday, either be mindful of past and future lifetimes, so that the orientation would be not focused only on this lifetime, but to think about future lifetimes and the actions that we take karma. And in Khenpo Kumpel's presentation, he added to that in saying that how wonderful it would be if we actually had recollection of past lifetimes, so that we would then gain conviction of the existence of past and future lifetimes, and then take care of the actions that we take. So that's what we've covered yesterday. So then, may everyone, just like Space Treasury, have uninterrupted resources without conflict and without harm. May they enjoy themselves in freedom. May the sentient beings with little splendor become greatly magnificent. May the poor forms of ascetic become fine and perfect forms. So in Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim Chemo, when he explains this section of karma in the states of the path that are shared with those of small capacities, they speak about karma in general. And at the end, there is a section that he explains the 8 attributes of fruition. I think that it comes in a section of karma, where he says that you can have a precious human body in general with freedoms and richnesses, but really, if you want to top it up with having something that is widely conducive for the practice, like magnificence and being authoritative, having long life and so forth, these are the 8 attributes of fruition. So it seems to me that this section is also connected to some degree with those attributes of fruition, right? So may everyone, just like space treasure, have uninterrupted resources without conflict, without harm. May they enjoy themselves in freedom. May the sentient beings with little splendor become greatly magnificent. May they have those attributes of fruition. May the poor forms of ascetic become fine, perfect forms. So this is what we've covered yesterday. Then, again, looking at the outline. Today we started with point D, dedicating for the excellent virtues. So we're just going to read through that and supplement some points from Khenpo Kumpel's presentation. It says in verse 31, due to this merit of mine, may all sentient beings, without exception, abandon all negativities and always create virtue. Geshe explained that today in relation to this teaching in one verse from the Buddha's teachings. Do not commit any negative action, perform perfect virtuous action, subdue man thoroughly. Do you speak about that or the what? Yeah, this is the teaching of the Buddha. So anyway, Khenpo Kumpel, verse 31 in page 423, it says, by the power of his merit, accumulated in the 3 times, so we can change it to our merit. But the power of a merit accumulated in 3 times, and I guess that we can also add to that, and also through the virtue of others. Shantideva again praised that beings, as numerous as the sky is vast, relinquish all their negative actions. May they always act in perfect and virtuous manner. So this is, I think, quite straightforward. Then verse 32 says, may they never be parted from the mind of enlightenment, exert themselves in the Bodhisattva conduct, be cared for by the Buddhas, and abandon actions of the Maras. So I thought of just, when I thought about this verse at home, since that we combine here in our practice, when we dedicate, we combine those 2 practices of thought and action, which pertain to aspiring bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta. It seems to be that this is what Shantideva is getting at. May they never be parted from the aspiring man of enlightenment. So may all human beings develop the aspiring man of enlightenment. And then on that basis, may they exert themselves in the Bodhisattva conduct on the basis of, since the engaging man of enlightenment. So in this sense, we combine both thoughts and actions, right? The aspiring man of enlightenment and then the engaging man of enlightenment. If you remember, we've covered that, I think, last year. So it is the practice of the conduct, the 6 perfections, which is directly qualified or actually qualified by the man of enlightenment, or we can say the other way around. When the man of enlightenment is explicitly qualified by the practice of the conduct. So when you practice generosity, ethics, patience, and so forth, when the man of enlightenment is present, it is the engaging man of enlightenment. So this is what it seems to me that what we wish for sentient beings to do. May they never be parted from the man of enlightenment and exert themselves in the Bodhisattva conduct, be cared for by the Buddhas, and abandon the actions of the Maras. So Khenpo Kumpel says, in particular, as the path of a Bodhisattva comprises both attitude and action, may we likewise never abandon the attitude of the bodhicitta in aspiration and action, or aspiring and engaging. May we work for the benefit of others by means of the 6 perfections. May we strive in the ways of the Bodhisattvas. Shantideva prays that our friends and helpers, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, may hold us in their compassion and love. May we abandon every kind of demonic behavior. May we avoid circumstances antagonistic to the practice, the bustle of worldly business, distraction, drowsiness and sleep, agitation and quarreling, which some of them, if not all of them, are also posited as hindrances for the practice of concentration. Sorry? Sorry. Thank you. No, that's good spot. Yeah, that's good. I was about to terminate you guys. But what I wanted to add to that is, Geshe spoke today of abandon the actions of the matters. And he said that these are the actions which are motivated by anger, attachment, and ignorance, right? So this is what, so when we speak about this word matters, it is normally translated as demons or, sorry, devaputras. Is that what you said? Yeah, devaputras, or those kind of devil demonic forces. They're called the actions of matters from the point of view of the matter of the afflictions, anger, attachment, and ignorance. So I think that in Buddhist mythologies, narratives, poetry, and so forth, anger, attachment, and ignorance sometimes take a physical form, like demons and so forth. So this is what we call the provisional or interpretive meaning, but the definitive meaning of what obstructs us are anger, attachment, and ignorance. But still, Khenpo Kumpel says with respect to that, he gives a more extensive explanation. It says, the sutras supply many descriptions of the kind of activity associated with the matters or demonic forces. Maitreya summarizes them in his Abhisamaya Alamkara, or his ornament for clear realization. According to Maitreya, in his ornament of clear realization, demonic forces manifest especially against those who make great effort in the practice. For if one endeavors without wisdom, negative forces are able to create obstacles, right? So if we might be really dedicated to a practice, but we do it with little wisdom, or not emphasize the wisdom side, right? So we might become really devout, say prayers and so forth, recitations or what have you, or kind of insist on doing a certain practice in a particular way, but without wisdom, it says here, even if we make great effort, negative forces are able to create obstacles. This is one way. They come in the guise of one's friends who say that one already has so much knowledge, that one is already endowed with spiritual qualities acquired through past training. Surely just a few recitations will suffice. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess all of us would wish that we would have to put less effort into a practice and attain great results. No, so I think that in general, though, you can say that those who come in the guise of one's friends that say that, no, we already have much knowledge, that we already have such good qualities and so forth, that we can do less practice. I think that probably this might be, we're less susceptible to that, but we're still susceptible to friends or other situations that might take away our energy and focus and so forth with what we need to do. Now, I notice, for example, that whenever I travel, and obviously we don't get to do much travel during COVID-19, but I remember that whenever I travel home and I stay for 2 or 3 weeks with my family or friends and so forth, my mind gets so easily distracted, and bit by bit kind of my focus shifts and I lose momentum. Right, so it's not that my friends are demonic forces, it's not that my family is demonic forces, but I can say that when I allow this distraction to creep in, and when I lose focus, there are external conditions for that, but I think that internal conditions is still there, right? The actual demonic forces is my lack of attention, probably. Anyway, then it says, so this is one type of demonic forces, so to speak. It says also, similarly difficult relations will arise between teachers and disciples, and the Dharma will not be expounded and studied. One will have the presumptuous thought that one's ethical discipline is superior, and one will look down on others. And just before we continue with that, it says, difficult relations will arise between teachers and disciples. So that, it is not unlikely to happen. I remember that during my involvement with Buddhism, I did see a few cases of falling out between students and teachers. I think that mostly for the side of the students rather than from the side of the teachers. And it is a great hindrance. I have a good friend back home that at some point find it really difficult to rely upon the teacher that he committed to, and not till now he finds that he really struggles with that. It's like a great impediment to what he wants to do. So this is really unfortunate. Or I remember that when I was doing my training as a translator, we had that a few people commenting on how great it is for a teacher to criticize you, because when they criticize you, then it works against your pride, right? So you have an opportunity to, to become more humble. But actually, when something like that happens, it's quite painful, So when I was, when I've been criticized by Geshe Jamyang, when I was not getting some stuff, and it was not like, at some point it kind of he became a bit short-tempered with me. He had enough of my asking him to repeat stuff. So, when it was more short-term with me, it was quite painful, So if you decide that, you're going to let that to interfere with, teacher that you rely upon, and you think that, no, I don't want to see that person again, or I don't want to rely upon that person again, and so forth. Here, it says that what Maitreya is saying in his ornament is that this is a form of emara, or demonic forces that comes in between you and your practice of relying upon a teacher. Then he also says, one will have the presumptuous thought that one's ethical discipline is superior. One will look down on others, right? So pride is a demonic force. And just as it is said that all pleasures of the senses are signs of evil forces or negative forces, in the same vein, clairvoyance, gain, respect, and so on are also regarded as the work of demons. In the sense that I think that when we speak about those objects of the senses, sounds, smells, and so forth, when they give rise to attachment, there are demonic forces. In a sense that particularly I think that when we think of the things that are adverse to the vows that we have, so some of us are monastics, so definitely we can think of things that put us in danger, but also lay practitioners, when you think of vows that you have committed to before, you can, when we think of, for example, if you have taken the lay vow and you have also chose to abstain from intoxicants, to abstain from alcohol and so forth, it's so easy in a cultural context to lose sight or to become a bit weak in terms of the commitment that we made, because we're challenged quite often in family gatherings or friends reunions or whatever. It's quite sometimes hard to deal with those attitudes. So rather than saying that those external things are the main demons, still the main thing is our own afflictions that give way to behavior that is incongruous with our commitments. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Chugula is saying, I'm repeating it for the people at home. So Chugula is saying that, well, when you take precepts and you have this silly tune or, just a song that comes into your mind, you call it an earworm? Worm? Yeah, earworm. Yeah, there you go. So yes, such thing. Then also here it says, Jane said, would you call self-cherishing a demonic force, or Mara cherishing creating obstacles for your Dharma practice? Where was it up? In the Guru Puja, it says, please bless me to destroy this monstrous demon of selfishness. So definitely self-cherishing is a Mara, demonic force. So probably also in Shantideva's text before, we considered self-cherishing to be like a demon, like a monster. Was there anything? All right, so here Dechen is saying pain associated with being told off is an opportunity to observe the self-cherishing and how intact our self-cherishing attitude is. Yeah, totally. I mean, here it's called a kind of a demonic force in a sense that if we fall prey to it, if we don't fight it, or if it wins over, definitely demonic force. But if you use it for breaking those habitual tendencies of listening to a self-cherishing attitude, doing what a self-cherishing attitude tells us to do, if we break those habits, then actually those things that challenge a self-cherishing attitude for us they're not demons, they're actually good friends, they're good conditions. So I guess it's part of a mind training practice in which we transform adverse conditions into factors that are conducive to the path, right? So when we encounter objects of the senses that challenge our ethical discipline, for example, then we can call them demonic forces, but we can also just as well say that when we acknowledge that attachment is present, or anger, pride, and so forth are present, and then we use this opportunity to vanquish or to reduce our afflictive states of mind, then those things that would be matters in some context for us become factors that enhance our practice of the path. So it says, just as it is said that all pleasures of the senses are signs of those evil forces or negative forces, in the same vein, clairvoyance, gain, respect, and so on are regarded as the work of demons, particularly kind of when you feel, I think, respected, sometimes as monks and nuns, if we are respected, if we're giving offerings or accolades or whatever, it's easy to become complacent or become proud. So here it says, this is also the work of demons. By contrast, it is said that lazy people are never hindered by demonic forces, for laziness itself is a demon, right? So it's already there. On the other hand, those who have wisdom are immune to all such demonic hindrances. So altogether, I chose to just focus on this section because, going back to Shantideva's verse, it says, abandon the actions of the matters. So Geshe-la mentioned it just in general as activities which are motivated by anger, attachment, and ignorance, but we can also look at the wider implication of what those demonic forces are. So may all sentient beings, ourselves and others, be free from those negative influences. Then in verse 33, may all these sentient beings have immeasurably long lives. Geshe-la spoke about it, I think today, mentioned that we don't just wish them to have long life and to be healthy and well, but to use that long life for the practice of the Dhamma. I can't remember in which context it came up, but we said before that it's actually, in some sense, you can say that it's better to have, if you have a long and useful or meaningful life, that's best. But if you have a long life in which you compound your afflictions, you create more negative actions, it's better to have a shorter life, right? So long life and virtue is good. If it's going to be negative, maybe we're better off having a shorter life. Although I think that probably it's just a general statement. I think that you can also wonder, if you fall into a miserable state of existence, and we said that there would be mostly negative actions, then it's not that. Yeah. Yeah. Mm. Mm. Yeah, so you're saying that it's still better to have a long life because there's still we have a human body, so there's still an opportunity to meet the Dhamma, meet a spiritual teacher, turn your mind to virtue, turn your mind towards the practice and so forth. So there's still an opportunity for you to, even if someone for a long period in their life do not use it for a positive or meaningful way, there's still an avenue of doing that. Yeah. Hmm. So we had last week a visiting Korean monk, Bob Sumin, and he said, I had lunch with him one day, and he said that he got ordained in Korea at the age of 20 or 22, and he relied upon the master for quite a few years. He was quite close to him. Then he came to Australia, and it was an abbot of a monastery or a center. It's around Sydney, and he was called back to go to Korea because his master got dementia. So it got to the stage where he became violent. He was disoriented, became violent or difficult to deal with, and the only person that he remembered and could relate to was Somin. Somin went back to Korea to help him out and to take care of him at the last phase of his life. So he said that it was difficult, but it was still possible for his master to elicit or to give rise to those positive qualities with Somin because he remembered him, but with the others it was more difficult. So Kate is saying, what about if someone decides to end their life because they are heavily afflicted and keep causing harm? I think that kind of this questions like, what about if someone decides to end their life? I think that they're kind of the massive questions because you could look at that from so many different perspectives. So it's it's hard to kind of just say about it good or bad, positive and negative. But I think that kind of when you think about it in terms of if you're afflicted and causing harm in this life, and suppose there is only one lifetime, then you can say that, yeah, maybe it's better to have a short life rather than long life. But then if you think about the existence of future lifetimes, at least from a Buddhist perspective, then no, we die, then we take another rebirth. It's not that just by ending a life in this life, we're going to be free from harm or habitual tendencies in the future. It might be actually that it could be possible that it will still continue. Hmm. Yeah, so Chugula is saying that it's better to let karma run its course in this life because you don't know if kind of the certain karma in this life is finished or not finished, whether it's run its course or not. But also the thing is that I think that if you recognize that you're heavily afflicted and you're also causing harm, if you recognize that, then you also recognize, I think at least from a Buddhist perspective, you recognize there's also an avenue for change. At least if you think, if you think about it from a Buddhist perspective, you think that, well, I've had a lot of negative habitual tendencies. I've caused harm to others. Of course, if I end my life and I take another rebirth without changing my habits, without changing the imprints that I have on my mind, it will continue in the future. It is likely to continue in the future in one form or another. So, ending one's life is not going to help. Yeah. All right. And the ending a life is not going to help. No, it's rather that the recognition actually offer us an opportunity to change, to change for the positive. Yeah. So ending one's life is also negative action, resulting in negative state of existence, maybe the health or whatever. So how are you going to make an improvement in those states? Yeah, particularly when you recognize that actually things are not going well. There are days in which I recognize that I'm irritated or that I'm angry, not a particular person, but just kind of this irritation or anger. So if I think that there's no point in doing what I'm doing because anger is still there, so I just better give it all up. It's not going to change anger. It's not going to solve my issue. Yeah, definitely. So I'm just repeating what you said to the people at home. So, if you recognize that anger is not good for you, it's not good for you, it's not good for others, then it gives you an opportunity to change your ways. Yeah. So it's just a mere recognition gives us an opportunity to make a change. Well, I mean, it kind of, so Chugida is saying that it's a bit of a challenge, thinking that, different states are putting together rules or laws supporting euthanasia or whatever. I don't know, kind of, it's a personal choice. So, even let's say that it's available in Queensland. I mean, it's not a challenge to me. It's like if I have to make a decision at some point, it's my decision. Someone else is making their decision. It's their decision, So I guess that it's actually quite interesting because we have different. I think that people have different ideas about it, different ways of thinking about it. Geshe Jianming, surprisingly, was not. When we discussed it, it was not actually averse to it. He said that actually, it's not kind of, if you get to the point where you become sick, and there's no, it's a terminal condition, and you suffer from a lot of pain, and there's not a prognosis is grim. He says he was in the opinion that actually it's not necessarily negative. I mean, those things are things that we can think through, we can rationalize, because they're not, you don't find euthanasia in the teachings of the Buddha. You have rules about not killing. You have references to killing yourself, or inscriptions and so forth. But there's still, I think, room for us to make our own decisions, or to look at certain situations and regard positive and negatives. Can we really end our life in a Buddhist context? Our continuum goes on. Well, we can. Our continuum goes on, but we can terminate the body. All right. Kate is just saying, kind of, that she's not talking about herself. She's just sometimes provides counseling to others. That's good. Anyway, so so Kempo Kumpa says, with respect to this verse, was it verse 33, 34? Which verse were we reading? 33. It says, "May beings born in the higher realms have immeasurable longevity, and for as long as they are alive, may they enjoy perfect wealth, may they live constantly in happiness, and may they not even hear of untimely death." Then verse 34 says, "May guardians of wish-fulfilling trees be full in all directions with Buddhas and Buddha's children, filled with the hearings and the proclaiming of the Dharma." I think if we move into, let's just look at it for a second at the outline. So we're looking at dedicating so that they have the temporary endowments and pleasure. So previously we looked at freedoms and richnesses and encountering the Dharma, being able to practice the Dharma and so forth. Here it seems that the focus is more of the surrounding that either might be conducive for Dharma practice, or just that would be the environment, would be a comfortable environment. So wishing longevity, and as we said also, may they be able to meet the Dharma, practice the Dharma, and so forth. Then it says, in verses 35 and 36, may the ground everywhere be without pebbles and so forth, as even as the palm of the hand is in nature of vidurya and soft. For all the circles of retinues that exist, may many bodhisattvas abide adorning the surface of the earth with their excellence. So I thought it's quite interesting because Geshe spoke about it in relation to how it was in Tibetan society, and probably still to a great extent, but also Tibetan society is also changing. So now this wish for monasteries to still continue to attract many monastics, and the assembly halls being filled with those who wear the robes. They may they engage with study and recitation and so forth. May tokens of auspiciousness occur. So of course we can make that aspiration, but I thought that it's also interesting to make this aspiration. Think of how do you make this aspiration for Dharma to flourish in a place like that. I mean, we can think of ideal conditions for the Dharma to flourish in a place like Australia. Communities of practitioners, monastics, but also lay practitioners find all the conducive conditions for Dharma to survive for a very long time in the future, which means that we can include our aspirations for infrastructures in centers, temples, and so forth to be good infrastructure, to have highly qualified teachers, to have good internet connection with kick-ass Zoom package and everything. So we can think about that and think that coming from they say often that the teachings of the Buddha are twofold: teachings as scriptures and teachings as realizations. And Geshe Jamang used to say that if you think of how it'd be like for the Dharma to survive in a place like that in the future, then we need to take care of these two aspects. We need people to become educated, and we also need people to have realizations. So these two are not divorced from each other. To be educated and to have realizations actually they come one after another. So I think that when we think of dedicating so that we might be surrounded by circles of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and so forth, actually, when we think about it in relation to our aspirations in a place like that, or being born in the future in a place where the Dharma can thrive, then we can think that may people around us study well, may they have all the conditions for study. For that to happen, it also depends upon us, right? So maybe we be able to do it well so that we, without hindrances, with our attention being divided, without not having enough resources to do it, without having other things that come in between and our Dharma education. And then may we also be able to take all of it and put it into practice and develop realizations, right? So without, so you can say that's practicing without study is good to a certain degree, but if you think of upholding the teaching of the Buddha as realization, it's probably that without having kind of a really solid understanding, we're not going to be able to carry this kind of Dharma of realization into the future. There might be some benefit to ourselves and to our surrounding, but not in terms of holding the Dharma as realizations. And the same as Dharma as scriptures. So you might be doing some studies. It's interesting. It's an interesting phase because the Geshes that we studied with were educated in monastery for 20 odd years, and they had all the translations and texts and everything available to them. So they kind of speak about the importance of studying it properly, but those conditions are not really available to us yet, not to the extent that they were available to the teachers that we study from, right? So, but if we don't create pathways for all those things to exist for us in the future, or if we do not kind of make a gradual progression in making more things available to us in the future, the teachings as scriptures will not be fully available to future generations. So I think that it's good to include that also in our dedication, to kind of to include the big picture. Mm. Mm. Yeah. So I'm just going to add what Shukila is saying. She said that also, the Geshe is telling us about the conditions that they had in the monastery, those favorable conditions for study, but still also when you think of them living, I think living in Tibet as refugees and coming to India and having to get by having to get by in the monastery with really poor food and poor housing and so forth for a few decades then. That was also present for them. But I think that kind of it's also interesting to think about it. When it's so easy to be spoiled by first world conditions. When I lived in India, when I studied in India, I think I said before that we had sometimes during the winter, power outage for 10 days, and everything kind of still went on. We were happy. I was happy. I was still studying. There was kind of, you just get by. Here we have no power for 2 days and kind of we go completely crazy, right? Yeah, 2 hours kind of, it's like we go into an emergency mode. So our ability to cope with difficult conditions is weakened. It's kind of the environment, you can say, makes us more susceptible to, or it's our mind actually. Our mind is making us less capable of coping with difficult situations. Dechen is saying, what was the story Geshe Tsultrim was telling when the recording went off about the gathering in a certain monastery and people's faults were pointed out or something like that? Do you remember what was the story? Oh, yeah. So I think Geshe was referring to what happened mainly during the Cultural Revolution in Tibet. So there were those sessions which are called in English, I think, struggle sessions. In Tibetan, they call them tamsin, where basically you had to denounce other people that came from a rich background or a powerful background, people that were holding certain ranks in society and so forth. So in order to topple, do you say, all the old structure down, then you would bring them to a struggle session where people either had to kind of attack them physically. Many people actually lost their life in those struggle sessions because they became really violent. There were also stories I read about stories of children that had to attack their parents and denounce their parents and so forth. So Geshe was speaking about Labrinpoche that was taken into one of those sessions because he came from a monastery. He was a high-ranking Lama, and that was his previous reincarnation. It just vanished, it seems, on the way to his struggle session. Sorry? Yeah, Rainbow Body. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my wasn't that the Cultural Revolution in China? Yeah, the Cultural Revolution was in China, but it was also part of when China took over Tibet. It was the same in Tibet. I think that kind of, you could say that in some sense in Tibet it started off early on than the main thing that happened in China, because kind of when Chinese came into Tibet, the destruction and this kind of shaking of the old structure began even before it began in China, at least according to some of the things that I read, but I'm not an historian, so take what I say with a pinch of salt. All right. So there was just one other point that I wanted to kind of point out. So dedicating, let's just read through the verses that we've covered. May all embodied beings continually hear the sound of Dhamma coming from the birds and the trees, from every ray of light, as well as from the sky. May they always meet Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' children. May they present offering to the gurus of migrating beings with infinite clouds of offerings. May the gods also send down timely rain and may crops be plentiful. May kings act in accordance with the Dhamma. May worldly beings also prosper. So, as Geshe pointed out, kind of, may kings act in accordance with the Dhamma. doesn't align well with our current political system, or in most places around the world. But as Geshe said before, it's not something that did not happen in the past. So it did not happen in the past, but we can also, I think, make aspirations for our political systems to be more in line with virtue. So it's not realistic, I think, to think that may the political system in Australia, for example, become a Buddhist political system, given that it's supposed to be secular, I think, according to the constitution. But anyway, may political leaders act in ways which are not harmful to others, benefit others, and not harmful to others. Yeah. Yeah, Chugula is saying that, like, for example, the discussion that we have at the present surrounding the Tamil family, some politicians are now saying that the decision has to be made on the basis of a compassionate attitude rather than just kind of strict rules and regulations. Yeah, actually, kind of when you think of such cases around the world where people are just being marginalized by a system of rules without giving any leeway for compassion, or using your, making it legitimate to use your compassion or caring for others as a basis for making decisions. So we'd be able to make decision based not only on wisdom or certain formulated governance system, but also based on compassion and caring for others. All right, I think that this is what I was planning to cover today. I think that this is also what Geshe covered. May worldly beings also prosper. I think that's a good way to put it. The commentary to this verse, I'm just going to read through the commentary of Khenpo Kumpel. It says, when beings practice pure virtue, the gods are victorious and the asuras are cast down. I read through that and I didn't know what to make of it. Anyway, it seems like it's a very Tibetan way of expressing that. The powers of purity prevail. May kindly spirits, gods and nagas who cleave to the side of virtue, bring the rain in season so that all the crops and fruit trees come to perfect ripeness, providing thus a good year for the country's people. Likewise, may the livestock increase for the nomads, also in Australia, I reckon. In every land, may there be no disease, no famine, and no wet. Let there be nothing but happiness and prosperity. And also to that end, may the cause of such effects also flourish. May the spiritual and temporal domains be maintained in peace according to the Dhamma, just as during the time of the world protecting sovereigns and of our three ancestral kings, the kings in Tibet. Maybe guided by wise and compassionate people. So this is how we can tailor it to our circumstance. Thus may the world and the beings that inhabit it prosper and be delivered from all decline. It's a good way to finish, I reckon. Any questions? All right, let's do the dedication verses. I will add to what we've covered today, as Chukila said. Yeah. Due to this virtue, man quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all transmigratory beings without exception to that state. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not incline, but increase more and more. In this land encircled by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all powerful Chinrezig Tenzin Gyatso. Please remain until samsara ends. You uphold the subduer's moral way who serves in the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels, protecting of oneself and others. Your disciples, please live long. Thank you.